Hello, and thank you for tuning into the Stuff I Heard podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Peak, and we have now entered fall. At least I think. This is the Stuff I Heard podcast, so this is stuff I heard. I heard that yesterday was the last day of summer and that this is officially the first day of fall. Today is September the 22nd. Um, I don't know. Is that true? Are we in fall now? Well, that would be super awesome. Mainly because the summer here in South Carolina, the summer kind of melts us. I mean, it is really, 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 really oppressively hot. And I'm sure it is for most people everywhere you go. There's versions of summer that's a little ridiculous everywhere you go, unless you're somewhere up north, and in which case it would seem extreme considering you're built for cold. If you're watching this on YouTube, my hair looks kind of crazy this morning. I rolled out of bed and did some research on what I was going to talk about. And I was like, that's a good topic. Let's jump on it. So, anyway, I want to talk about some things that I've seen. Okay. And maybe it might perk some interest of things you might be interested in. A couple of things. There's a television show that's on Amazon Prime. They used to be three drivers, three hosts, Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond, and James May. And they were on a television show called Top Gear that was on BBC for a very long time. I don't know how many seasons they ran, but they one by one left the show, sort of because of an incident that happened with Jeremy Clarkson and a personal assistant person that involved a sandwich, from what I hear. This is stuff I heard, so I don't really know if that's true. But anyway, they left Top Gear and they wanted to start a different show. They quote unquote talk about a guy named Mr. Willman, who is the executive producer. Andy Willman is listed online, and they say Mr. Willman says we must blah 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 because he's the executive producer, right? And he's the one that okays the money for the show. And then they take whatever that is and they do it's like some kind of challenge. So whenever they started this other show on Amazon, they called it the Grand Tour. Okay, which is a neat title, because it involves a journey. Now, here's the thing: whenever these three guys were on Top Gear, they would have like a weekly show or a monthly show. I don't know exactly how often it came out, but they would do a show where they would look at new vehicles coming out, talk about the designs, talk about the people they were dealing with, talk about the community they lived in, and how their vehicles would actually work in real life, and what's a silly thing they could do with their vehicles. And then once in a while, they would do like a really long, almost a movie type adventure. And somewhere along the way, they decided, you know what? Let's not repeat what we did at BBC. Let's take this concept of Grand Tour and actually just have like movie style, let's go on an adventure. Let's go on a grand tour, quote unquote. All right. So for years now, I've watched them do that. The format of the show for 3 years was to do like a studio format with them sitting down and talking to guests and doing some of the similar things they did at Top Gear. But then they were decided, you know what? Let's not do that. Let's film us going out and doing adventures on these really long things. So for the last few years, all they've done is these really long movies, basically, of them going out together, trying out different things, and just having fun. And their fun is infectious. Their fun is the kind of thing that when you watch it, you go, I am excited to watch these guys on this journey, have fun, figure things out, and explore some of the areas of the world that I may never get to, and kind of show a different version of what you think you know. So the final, I guess you call it, movie posted recently, and I watched it. It was over 2 hours long, and they were in Zimbabwe, and they drove from one side of Zimbabwe to the other. And it's kind of funny because the premise of it was they show up and they say, well, Mr. Wilman said that he wanted us to get some mid-priced electric vehicles and drive, here and here. And we don't want to do that because we don't like electric cars. We like real cars. So we decided we were going to make our own challenge. So we decided to meet here and we bought cars that we've always loved but never drove or never owned. So they all show up with their own versions of what they always wanted. And I don't know the names of the brands of the cars. The only one that was recognizable was the Triumph Stag, which looks like a MG, and the Ford Capri. The other one I've never heard of, but it kind of like a little sports car, almost like a Lotus Esprit, but it wasn't that. I don't know. Anyway, the point is, they show up with these vehicles. They drive through Zimbabwe, and while they love their vehicles, within 15 minutes, one of them breaks down. And of course, they're buddies, so they have fun with each other, and sometimes at each other's expense, but it's all for the show. Um, they make it through Zimbabwe. The entire show is then sort of pivoted with Mr. Wilmon figuring out that they didn't do the challenge they wanted to do. They were doing something else. And he's like, okay, for this, we want to make sure that you don't break down. So we're bringing a car to like be a backup car just in case you break down, which they do on a lot of their adventures. And it's usually something they don't want to drive. So this time, their backup car is like a Volkswagen Beetle. And then they have a scenario where they destroy the Beetle just for fun. And listen, I like it. I like the guys. I like the premise of the show. I hate the fact that this is the final tour. This is the final show. Um, but they're all at the age where they just physically can't do this anymore like they did. It's very taxing on them, the things that they've done over the years. And they've all gotten in wrecks, they've all gotten hurt. Um, it's sometimes testing the limits of what they can do for the sake of being silly for the show, for ratings. And they've they've all gotten very hurt before. So um, I'm glad that none of them died doing the show. There was opportunities for that to happen, but it didn't happen, thank goodness. But I've enjoyed the show. They've made me laugh so much, um, sometimes uncontrollably. Sometimes they've made each other laugh to the point that they just lose control of their bodily functions. One, I can't. There's one episode in particular where um, they'd gotten these little four-door small SUVs and a pull-behind camper, and they wanted to show why is this so popular? Why are people doing this? And so they set off on an adventure with their campers. And at a certain point, James May loses control of his camper because he's laughing so hard at the other guy's camper falling apart that he ends up wrecking himself and the camper. But you see the camera inside of him at his face, and his face is red, and he lets go of the steering wheel because he can't catch his breath. He's laughing so hard. And I mean, that's fun whenever you get to that point where you get to laugh so hard that you're like, wait, 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 I can't breathe. Like one of those kind of moments. Yeah. I mean, it's special. So yeah. Um, I hate to see the show end, but also there's lots of content. They were on Top Gear and Grand Tour together as a threesome for 22 years on television. And they showed how in this episode, the final one, they ended up at the location where they ended up on their first episode on Top Gear. And there's a cool little sequence at the end where they show photos and videos kind of flashing back to it. They go to this sacred tree, this very large tree that's on an island out in the middle of a salt flat. It's a desert. And it's really cool to see the difference. And the crazy part was I watched the first episode. I didn't watch it when it happened, but as things come up in syndication, you can watch them over and over again. I just realized I said the word syndication, and there's young kids out there that are like, "What are you talking about? I can just watch anything anytime." Yeah, you're right. Well, back long ago, back in black and white days, um, no, not that quite that far. There was television shows that came out at a certain time, and if you didn't catch that episode, you may never see it again unless it gets picked up by syndication, in which means you would have episodes that show on like over and over again on a weekend, and you might be able to catch all the episodes. But because of the internet coming along at the right time, I was able to watch a lot of their specials as a group together. They have great chemistry together. They're really funny. They play off of each other. And sometimes it's kind of fun just to be invited to play. I mean, just the term play. Um, I found myself using that this past week when talking to another person about how to speak to a group of people. We have a training class that we teach, and there's an element of it where you're basically inviting the new employee to play with you, because through play you can learn, and through play you earn trust, and through play you invite them to participate, and you learn more if you participate than if you don't. Um, I don't know. I realized this a long time ago when I was younger that I often was not a lecture person. If you sit me down and just tell me a bunch of stuff, I really don't learn what you just told me. If you invite me to play with you and I learn something along the way, I'm going to retain that information longer because emotion is tied into it. So for most of us, our emotions help us learn. Um, think back to when the things you remember the most. It's usually because you've been angry or happy or sad or whatever, but it's usually because an emotion is attached. So yeah, in all of this, the element of play is what I enjoy because that is the thing that I remember. So so cool. All right, let's talk about something else I heard because this is stuff I heard. I watched a interesting 6-part documentary on Netflix, and I know I said the word documentary. A lot of people just went, "Nope, I'm out." Not Netflix, on Amazon, about the NIL deal with LSU. It just focused on the LSU athletes because that's where they decided to point a camera. Often, uh, they'll do that. They'll just focus on a particular team, like HBO's done it with their Hard Knocks series, where they just focus on a team's preseason, talk about the characters, and give you development on them and what they do and how they sort of make it to the next round or don't. Um, Amazon sort of did this with the NIL deal, mainly because of the success of the men's and women's basketball and football teams, and how a lot of the money that's generated for these schools is through football. But LSU caught the perfect wind of their basketball team doing really well, their female basketball team doing well, the rise in popularity of Angel Reese. You know, this perfect storm of opportunity. Plus, you had track and field stars as well as NIL superstars with their gymnastics team, really sort of paving the way for what it meant to be an NIL athlete. Livy Dunn was a social media influencer before she became known as being such a great gymnastics person. They went on to win the nationals while she was filming this. But she had a huge following on TikTok and things of that nature. Over 8 million followers on TikTok, 5 million on Instagram as a freshman, and so it just her popularity just increased after that. With the female basketball team, you got Flau'jae Johnson and Angel Reese, both of them kind of setting their own pace of being social media dominant people. Flau'jae also has a rap career that she's in, making music with. And has quite a following doing that as well. For the football team, Jaden Daniels won the Heisman. Um, drafted number 2 overall by I think he went to the Washington Commanders. That's right. Yeah, Washington Commanders. But the Aaliyah Armstrong, she does the 60 and the 100-meter hurdles. She's broken a ton of records. It talks about her struggle with trying to connect with people on a platform to get an NIL deal. She's one of the top athletes in America, and she's having trouble getting any kind of money whatsoever. And she talks about how there's times where she doesn't have any money in the bank account and she needs to eat, and she's like, "And what do I do?" And they do a good job of like talking about this from different angles. There's a guy, Trace Young. He plays on the men's LSU basketball team. He has a huge social media following. He's a natural when it comes to making content with Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that. But he's made a comment. He's like, I know that I'm not talented enough to play at the next level. I'll never play in the NBA because I don't have that ability. I'm good enough for college, but I'm not good enough for the next round. He's like, and hopefully I can make a career out of making these types of videos that I've been making for other athletes to help them get NIL deals. And maybe it will. Maybe that'll turn into his business. But the interesting part of it is this documentary does a really good job of showing you the angles from everybody involved, their families, Sometimes someone's sister or someone's best friend or someone's mother becomes the person that drives their whole platform of what they're doing. And it's very interesting to watch. Um, I watched it all week long in the mornings. Each episode is around an hour long, but it was very cool to see how these athletes came to college, how the NIL is starting to pay athletes money, what it means, how these schools were taking in billions of dollars and not giving anybody anything except for themselves. And now, these kids can actually make a living being in college, and being able to afford to take care of themselves and their families or not. I mean, sometimes it's just the popularity of the sport. Sometimes it's your ability to think creatively and make content that people want to watch. Um, you see all different angles from this. You see a lot of athletes that are great athletes, but just don't have any desire to do social media stuff. Um, but yeah, it's amazing because in the process of doing this, you become a product. But not only that, you have to be an actor because you're portraying that person who's selling you a product. You have to be light and bubbly and say the thing perfectly and have the perfect lighting and have the perfect this and the perfect that. And in reality, nothing is perfect. In reality, sometimes the pursuit of doing this can give you a huge burnout. And they talk about that as well. They kind of show you a little bit of everything behind the curtain. And it's pretty fascinating to watch. Um, so, yeah, check that out. It is on Amazon right now, the NIL LSU deal. Yeah, it's really cool. Um, so what did I write down? Oh, I just wrote down some notes. I had to check my notes real quick. I was like, what did I write down? I wrote down about Top Gear. So yeah, things you're hearing right now. I'm sure if anybody's paying attention to social media right now, you're hearing about Sean P. Diddy Combs and the scandal that is behind his arrest, and how there's a lot of celebrities that are tied to his parties that are going to be in a lot of trouble. There's going to be a lot of people. There's also an opportunity in chaos for power to take over. Now, this is a common theme that I've heard in a lot of things. It's in every show and movie and military strategy thing. In chaos, there's an opportunity for someone to take power and control. And you got to think, if the federal government has had all of this information for a while, why are they waiting this long to arrest him? Is it so that they can also arrest the other people that were involved? Is it so that they can use their power and influence to then influence an election? Because there is an election coming up. Um, what is their angle? Why do it now? Why not when you got the information? I mean, I understand you got to have all of the facts before you can move forward, because the last thing you want is a perpetrator getting out free because you didn't have all your ducks in a row. There is a precedent for a legal case, where a lot of famous people could get in a lot of trouble. And the last thing you want to do is make a mistake. So you better know what you're doing before you go and arrest someone like that. It does create more of a nasty appearance if you mess up. So, yeah, Sean Combs is arrested. There's a lot more that's going to be arrested. There's a lot more information that's being leaked from the security people that he had paid, as well as some of the people that were at his parties are starting to release their own videos and photos. And it's pretty crazy what was going on. And I don't think I want to talk about it too much, other than just be aware if your favorite celebrity or athlete or politician becomes arrested for something, um, there's going to be a huge reveal out of this. So just be aware. It's coming. Finally, 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 we may figure out who's on Epstein's list. Finally, we may figure out who did everything, and we might finally figure out that it's actually some people in our own government. How about that? How about that? It's amazing what people with power will do to keep power, whether it's through the power of influence or the power of suggestion or the power of blackmail. House of Cards taught us that Everyone has a weakness, and if you exploit that weakness, you have power over them. I mean, here we go. We're watching it right now unfold with this legal case that's going to come. So, yeah. All right, that's it. I'm going to wrap this up. I don't want to get too far into this because I don't know enough and I don't care enough. I mean, I care that like innocent people got hurt, but also like there's only so much in your little red wagon you can take care of, and I got enough in my red wagon right now. It's just one of those things that's happening around me that I go, hey, look at that dumpster fire over there. Wow. How about that? How about that? So, all right, that's it. I'm gonna wrap this up. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Um, if anybody's watching the Lord of the Rings stuff on Amazon, let me know because I'm pretty fascinated with it. They're doing a really interesting job of portraying this creation of the rings thing. It's pretty neat. So anyway, again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and as always, cue the cow, baby.
Cue the cow. Moo, baby.